Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. So today we'll be creating some sort of very modern looking boxy home, and we're actually using a very interesting exterior color. So I'm going with like these more dark and like black color themes for like the entire like exterior of the home, which I thought looked really interesting, and I haven't really utilized that sort of exterior on the channel so far. So yeah, I wanted to explore and see like what I could really do with it, and I feel like it turned out pretty well. I mean, I did have to like mix a bunch of different like black colored swatches that weren't all the same tone just to make it look a bit more interesting, because you guys will see earlier on in the video how I just used like the same black going throughout the entire exterior, and it just looked so like boring, and it just didn't really add or like make the build look interesting. But then I added like some different textures and stuff like that, and yeah, it just turned out really well. But so far we're starting off with like the foundation that I have going on here, which is like huge, and we have a lot of like outdoor area space, which I really wanted for this build, because mainly I was going for that like some sort of vacation experience and like feel. So I really wanted them to have like a lot of space on the lot available for them, especially with like that huge swimming pool out in the like outdoor area, which I feel like looked so good. And yeah, like I mentioned, I really wanted to keep this build in granite floors, but it just wasn't working out because it just didn't look as good as I was thinking it would, unfortunately. But I will hopefully come back to this lot in particular, which is a 50 by 51, and create something interesting for you guys here, because I really do love this lot in particular. It looks very mysterious, and it's kind of just like in the wilderness, like out in the middle of nowhere. I do actually have a very nice build, in my opinion, that I created on this build a while ago, and I would highly recommend you guys check that out. I would leave it in the description below if you guys want to check that out, or I believe it's on the right hand side of your screens right now. But yeah, I feel like you guys would definitely like that if you want something sort of like in the vacation style, if that makes sense. But yeah, this house had like so many weird and interesting like shapes to it. So there's a bunch of like stairs and stairways and steps just like going throughout the entire home, which I feel like looked and made the house look a bit more interesting, in my opinion. And we also utilized a lot of platforming on the roofing as well as like on the balcony areas, just to make it look a bit more dynamic than it really is. Because as I mentioned, like the house is genuinely like really boxy, and I just didn't want that to like happen, you know. Like I wanted it to be a bit more interesting and dynamic looking. So you guys will definitely see me adding a lot of rooms and a lot of shapes to the exterior of this home, just to make it look less boxy than it really is. Yeah, so this was the initial, like, I'm gonna say wallpaper, but it's not wallpaper. It's like this like tiling thingy, this like wooden tiling thingy that we have on the wallpaper for the exterior right now, and that does end up changing, because as you guys can see, it just looks very flat. Like it doesn't really look that interesting to look at. You can't really tell where the corners end or meet or whatnot. So yeah, it just wasn't really looking that great, in my opinion, so far. But I did obviously like carry on with this build because I didn't want it to go to waste. I don't really like scrapping most of my builds. I just kind of like go with the flow, and if it doesn't end up looking the best, I'll still try to like manage and try to make something out of it, if that makes sense, because I just feel like, you know, it's better than like wasting time, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just really hope you guys do actually end up liking this build, because I feel like it really does actually look good when you put it on the right lot. I feel like that really does matter. And I actually went around the entire like foundation area for the exterior of this house, and I placed these stone pillars from Spa Day because I just really liked the way it looked. But I only utilized that for where the pool area is. I didn't put it all around the house because I just felt like it would just be a bit too much, and plus if if one accidentally got removed, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like you could just get rid of all of it and the build would pretty much look the same, and you wouldn't have any issues. But yeah, I just felt like it made the house look a bit more interesting, and especially because I was building in the middle of nowhere, I wanted to sort of keep that like, I wanted a lot of rocks and stuff like that, because I feel like the terrain wouldn't really be that even like out in the wilderness, if that makes sense. So yeah, that was kind of like the vision that I was going for, and then I ended up obviously changing to Sulani. But then I ended up keeping it the way it was, and I didn't really touch the foundation. Like I didn't lower it or raise it, mainly because I just felt like it really did work out with it being like an over waterfront lot, if that makes sense. So it kind of made sense to like have that sort of like stone tiling going around the entire home that sort of like protected it, if that makes sense, and it was like above the water level. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this build in the comment sections below, because I feel like I did really enjoy building this, although it was kind of like challenging in some areas. And as you guys can see, like this is essentially the front of the home, and it doesn't really look like anything right now. And I was really playing around with the terrain, just trying to make it look and feel like it really suited the area that it was in. But eventually I just like gave in. I was like, you know what, it's not really looking that great so far. So I just had to like move it, and I believe we're coming onto that right now. And I just feel like it really did turn out a lot better than when it was in granite floors, in my opinion, because it just wasn't working out. But yeah, as you guys can see so far, this is like the renovated front area, and I just like made it look less boxy than it was. So I didn't really want like a lot of straight corners. I wanted to add a few like interesting things here and there, and I feel like I was able to do that pretty well. And I also included some sort of like unusable catwalk around like one side of the home, because I wanted like parts of the house to actually like stick out. I didn't want it to stay flat, as I mentioned a few moments ago. And I feel like I was really happy with how the exterior looked at this point. So instead I just like moved on to like adding the decorations and stuff and just like making it look a bit more detailed. To be honest, for some reason I don't really use the like railing or anything on the first floor like sort of garden area or like the outdoor area. I don't know, for some reason I feel like it just looks a lot nicer when it's plain and simple. I feel like the glass and like the small stilts like in between each of the glass paneling just doesn't look as interesting as I would want it to be. I did have to add it onto the stairs because I just feel like it would look a bit weird if I didn't. But besides the stairs, I didn't really want to incorporate it anywhere else because I just didn't think it looked that nice, to be honest. I feel like it wasn't really a big deal for me not utilizing that in general or like for the overall build, mainly because it didn't really affect the build in any way. And yeah, I just feel like it made it look a bit more clearer, to be honest, because you guys can see like a lot more rather than me covering up with like some fence pieces. But yeah, we move on to the interior. As you guys can see, like the floor plan for the first floor is relatively huge, and this wasn't obviously how it looked in the beginning, but as I was adding a bunch of more like rooms and stuff to make it look a bit more interesting, it did end up becoming a very huge house. And although the exterior is very dark and like has a lot of like dark tones and stuff, I still wanted that to be resembled inside of the home as well. So I used a lot of like black counters and a lot of black furniture that I just feel like looked so well. And we're actually starting off with the kitchen, which I feel like looked so amazing. Like I just really like the way the kitchen works. And I believe I mentioned this in a previous video, but I just really like the use of like the Dream Home Decorator kitchen kit as well as like the Island Living one, mainly because I really just like the waterfall edge that comes with the Island Living pack. But then I also love the way the counters or the cabinets look from Dream Home Decorator expansion pack. So yeah, I just wanted to use a mix of those. And I really like the orange coming from the cabinet sort of like handles from the Dream Home Decorator kitchen pack, because I just really like the way that looked. And I was trying to make a kitchen that looked relatively interesting and unique. I didn't want to make the same style or something similar that I'm always used to doing. And I actually ended up utilizing some sort of like nice tiling backsplash in like this really dark bluish sort of greenish color, and I just really fell in love with it. So instead I just kept it as that. And I really do like utilizing an accent wall for the back of my kitchens because I just feel like it makes it stand out a little bit more. And obviously because we're using a lot of these like dark colored furnitures, I did want to also utilize a lot of light as well. So you would see most of the walls in this house white color, but we do also have like some very nice accent colors that I feel like really do tie in the home all together really well. And despite me utilizing a lot of Dream Home Decorator, I just feel like it works really well with this particular build, mainly because we're going for this like really modern aesthetic that you can't really make with any other pack in the entire game. So unfortunately, Dream Home Decorator is definitely a must if you guys are planning to download this build. But yeah, I really hope you guys do actually like this build as much as I do as when I was creating it, because I just feel like it was a really nice process to go through, and like it was sort of like a challenge for me as well to like decide whether I wanted to carry on or not, or like adding on to it and making it look as interesting as possible, just so you know it looks a bit more like livable in, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you guys are new to my channel, welcome. We are almost close to hitting 2,000 subscribers, so it'll be a great gesture if you guys would be willing to like join and help me out in reaching that goal. And I would also do have a bunch more other videos on the channel if you guys are like interested in more of these like Sims builds and whatnot. I do create like a bunch of different ones ranging from like many different styles, from like family homes or even like mansions or even small homes or even vacation lots. But yeah, I'm just sort of like exploring and seeing what kind of like builds really suit the channel, and I just like creating like pretty much like whatever comes to mind, or if I see anything that I'm inspired from Pinterest. But yeah, as I was talking about all of that, we pretty much just like went through all of the entire office speed build like renovation, and I really like the way that turned out, to be honest. I kind of use these like very nice wainscoted wall texture because I just feel like it looked really nice, and it kind of like works in these office rooms and spaces. And this is, I believe, like one of the only bathrooms that I show, mainly because this is sort of like the main bathroom of the entire home, or at least the first floor. And I didn't really show any of like the en-suites or like the second, third floor bathrooms, mainly because it was just a bit time consuming and they all relatively look the same. I mean, I just used like the same toilet and the same clutter pieces and whatnot. So I just felt like it would just like save time for both of us instead of like having to watch both of that, if that makes sense. And we're actually moving on to the first bedroom, which is on the first floor actually. And recently in most of my builds, I've been starting to create a lot of these bedrooms on the first floor. We always have either like 1 or 2 bedrooms on the first floor, mainly because like these houses are so huge and you just don't know what to fill with them. So yeah, you just create like extra bedrooms or just like extra like rooms that like don't really make any sense. So I just feel like, you know what, might as well just create a nice looking bedroom, and if you guys wanted to renovate it or change it into something else, you guys definitely can. I don't really create a lot of like complex bedrooms and rooms and whatnot, so it's like easily changeable, if that makes sense. But yeah, I just tried to make something look simple yet also really interesting, because that's like kind of like the main goal for me, in my opinion. Mainly because like there's some people who play the game who can't really run it properly, or there's just some people who want to like change it to like fit their own Sims needs and styles, which is fair enough. Like that's not a problem at all. So yeah, I kind of just like create some sort of like general sort of like layout and like look of the build, and you guys can like go in and just like change it to whatever you guys want it to be. But yeah, we also have this very nice dining table in like sort of like the hallway or like corridor area of this entire build. I mainly go for these really big open floor plans, mainly because I just feel like it looks a lot more interesting, and it's just like a more contemporary style for like when creating rooms or like a more like modern build. I feel like they always have like these open floor plans, which I feel like look so nice. And we also have like a very nice desk area off to the side of the build that like sort of like overlooks to the side of the water view, which I really do like. And I wanted to sort of create that despite having an office, mainly because I just feel like that's kind of just like a more general computer desk workspace, if that makes sense. And we do also have a bunch more like desks and like workspaces in the individual bedrooms as well, but I just wanted to add that just to like, you know, add some like clutter and detail here and there rather than leaving it empty or adding like another small sofa there that's not really going to be that interactive or functional. But yeah, moving on to the second floor bedroom, which I actually really liked creating this one. And as I mentioned, like we keep most of the wallpaper white, but I really do love adding these like accent colors to like either on the back side of the bedroom or like if there's like a TV unit area. I just feel like it makes the bedroom look a lot more interesting than it really is by adding these like small accent rooms. And recently I've been using these like sort of vintage looking sort of like wall lights, and I just really like the way they look, mainly because they look very simple, even though it does lean towards a more vintage looking styled like wall like sconce. I feel like it just looks really interesting, and I just feel like it does work pretty well. And I don't really mind mixing a lot of like vintage or like traditional looking objects with like the modern pieces, mainly because we don't really have a lot of choices in the game anyway. So yeah, I don't really mind like mixing up and stuff and like creating something that looks a bit interesting. But yeah, I have been utilizing that a lot recently, especially in like the bedrooms where it's like instead of using like a night lamp, I just use like the wall sconces, if that makes sense. And I just feel like it looks pretty good overall. And we had this like really huge room off to the side of the second floor, and I just didn't know what to create of it. Initially I was thinking of creating like some sort of gym, but then I was just like, it's just like not as interesting, you know, to like make this really huge room a gym. So instead I just divided it and created one part to be like a gaming room sort of situation, like a his and hers gaming room situation, or you guys could change the colors and just do whatever you want, to be honest. But that was sort of like the vision that I was going for if I was to play it in this build. But yeah, I went with like this like very nice honeycomb wallpaper that came from the high school years expansion pack, along with like the gaming computer, the desk and the chairs that all came with that expansion pack, because I just really like the way it looks. And on the room aside it, we have a very nice like sort of book nook sort of area, which I did actually heavily utilize that kit when creating this room, mainly because I just wanted it to look like a very peaceful and calming sort of like room where you can like go in and read a book, or if you wanted to like paint something. And I added like a bunch of like paintings onto the wall and like some canvases that were like leaning onto the side of the wall and stuff, as well as like the peg wall sort of like unit thing where you could like put your paintbrushes and whatnot. And I just feel like it worked really well with the new kit that's coming out. I completely forgot what its name was, but I believe there's like an artistry kit coming out soon, and I just feel like it would be really nice to utilize something like that in one of these builds as well. So yeah, hopefully I will be able to utilize that kit in future videos. So yeah, make sure to stay tuned for that if you guys are interested in that sort of thing. And we're also utilizing a lot of move objects cheats just to like put a lot of clutter and stuff onto these desks just to make it look a bit more interesting than they really are, because I just feel like the slots that we have on these tables are really bad. Like I feel like we should just have a lot more like freedom to put it like wherever we want, especially like if like the item is like big or small. I feel like it shouldn't really matter. We should be able to place anything wherever we want to, and if it looks weird, it's kind of just like our fault rather than the game telling us not to do it. But I mean, I guess like moving it and like hovering it above the desk isn't really that bad of an idea either. Moving on to the third floor, we're actually going off with like the last few bedrooms, and I didn't really show every single bedroom in this build, mainly because I just feel like it would just take such a long time. But I have also provided a very long sort of like tour video towards the end of the build, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But yeah, towards the end of the video, I just ended up going around the entire build and just adding some extra details here and there, like rocks and like leaves, just to make it look a bit more like lived in and as if it was like actually created here, because it was just looking a little bit bare around like the edges of the platform and foundation tool. But yeah, that's pretty much it to the entire speed build. So thank you very much for watching. If you guys have stuck around towards the end of the video, I really appreciate it. Let me know what you guys actually think by leaving a like and subscribing, and also let me know what you guys think about this build in general in the comment sections below. I'd love to know your thoughts, and if you have any suggestions, I'd love to read them as well. But yeah, I have a bunch more videos like this on the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.